Real people, real celebrities, real talk.
Join the Breakfast Club.
Blast off in your
Weekday morning, 6 to 10.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building this morning.
That's right.
Dr. Boyce Watkins. Good morning, sir.
What's happening, brother? How you doing?
Everything?
Everything's good.
Long-time pal of mine. You know, we've been having a conversation for the past 2 weeks about financial, I call it illiteracy. You know, ever since Mr. Damon Dash left. You know, and it sparked up a good conversation in our community just about finances and, you know, entrepreneurship, investing and self-empowerment. So I wanted to reach out to a financial expert that I know, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
All right.
Now, for people who aren't familiar, tell them why you're a financial expert.
Well, I have a PhD in finance, and I taught finance for about 20 years, University of Kentucky, Indiana University, Syracuse University, etc. So, you know, I know a lot about money. I know what it's like to not have any money. I used to really want money. That's why I majored in finance. I wasn't even really supposed to go to college. I figured if I studied money and learned about money, somebody would pay me money to talk about money. But then I really also learned how money can be used as a tool not just to liberate you, but it can also enslave you. I mean, we have a lot of multimillionaires in our community that are scared of their own shadow, that are just afraid of everything, afraid to be controversial, etc. And I think sometimes if you look at money in the wrong way, money, it's powerful like fire or like a drug. Like fire can either cook your food and keep you warm, or it can burn you and your family alive. A drug can either heal you and make you better, or it can turn you into an addict. So that relationship with money, I think, is important because most of us think about money several times a day, every day.
And you wrote several books on finances as well.
Yeah. You know, I wrote a book called Black American Money. I have another book coming out called It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, a new paradigm for Black America. And it's basically talking about, you know, just ways to think about money in ways that money can really be the next step in our civil rights movement. You know, because, you know, if you have political power without any economic power, that's kind of like having a driver's license but not having a car. You know, like you're not going to go anywhere unless somebody else wants to give you a ride, and then at that point, you're still only going to go where they want to take you.
Gotcha.
So now, question: Dame Dash. We mentioned that earlier. What did you think of Dame Dash's interview?
You know what?
You described him as a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
You know, yes. Well, you know what? I liked. Here's what I like about Dame. I liked the energy that Dame comes with. Like I like. To me, I think that so many black men have been so emasculated economically, and it's not something that just recently happened. It's been happening for hundreds of years. That I like the idea of just having a call to manhood. And kind of saying, you know, look, we can do better, you know, and sometimes, like you think about it on the football field, you know, your coach that motivates you to play, sometimes he's going to punk you out. Right. Somebody like, you know, you were playing like a bitch, you know, get up, you know, you need to win, you know, but the thing is, I think with Dame, it's interesting because, you know, he's a little bit like I think he was trying to be kind of like an economic version of a Harriet Tubman, like, you know, I'm going to get these slaves off the plantation, I'm going to shoot you if I have to. Right. But you know, we all understand that in order to escape the plantation, you have to have a plan, right? To go to war, you have to have a battle strategy. But not having the strategy in hand right away does not give you an excuse to not fight. And I think that, and so that's what I like about Dame. I think Dame started a conversation. We weren't really talking about this kind of thing, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm glad he did it.
But it's deadly. It's very deadly, and it could hurt a lot of our own, especially a lot of youth.
There's a lot of different things that were said. Some things that we may agree with, some things we may not agree with.
Let's play some of it right fast.
Some of Dame's rhetoric. Let's start with
you enjoy the safety and the security of a job every day. But there's no pride in that to me.
Now, let me ask you a question. There's millions of people out there that don't have that opportunity and
all have the opportunity.
A boss every day. So you're basically saying because they have a boss, there's no pride in that?
I think because people on the radio tell people it's okay to have a boss, they don't understand that they can have more. It's just a pride you should have in ownership.
So how do you get to that platform? How do you get to the platform?
By putting your own money up and investing in yourself.
But that's the reason why we set up the platform, so they don't have to do anything.
You have a boss.
But you know what else is interesting, Dame?
You have a boss. How can a man say he has a boss and be proud?
Okay, no pride in having a job. Having a boss is like calling another man daddy.
And how can you have a boss and be proud?
I think that it's okay to have, I mean, everybody has some kind of a boss on some level. Like with the interview you did with Andy, I think is his name.
Andrew,
you know, Andrew, yeah. There's always, you know, even if you own your own business, you have someone that you have to answer to. You have something you have to. Right. Every day when I get up and I'm motivated, I'm answering to the boss that lives inside of me that's saying, if you don't get off your butt, you're not going to achieve your goals. So everybody kind of has some sort of boss. The question is whether or not you're being pimped by your life. Whether or not someone is your boss to the point where you don't feel free. You know, you don't have any degrees of freedom in your life. You feel stuck in your own existence. I think in that situation, you have to make a change. Because here's the thing, and a lot of people don't get this. If you work for me and I'm the reason that your children get to eat every day, I'm the reason that your wife has a roof over her head, you're not really the man of your house. I'm the man of your house. And so I think that having someone you answer to is okay, but if you can somehow shift your situation where everything is a partnership, where you have options. You know, for example, one question you could ask is, do you have FU money? If somebody on your job calls you the N-word or disrespects you or you just hate your job, do you have enough put aside? Do you have enough other options so you can walk in and say, F you, I'm out? If you can't really do that, then I would say you have to adjust something in your life. Just because you're committed to something doesn't mean you don't have options. Right. So you know, is there no pride in having a boss? I mean, I don't think we can agree with a statement like that per se, but because there's dignity in working hard, no matter what. But I do think that if you are being pimped by your life, you got to make an adjustment.
Like I tell some of my friends who might complain all the time, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I hate this. I'm like, well, you can't complain about it for too long. You got to do something about it. In that case, if you really hate it and it's not what you want to do, at some point, instead of complaining for years and years and years, you got to get up off, you know, and do something, change it, get a new job, create some more opportunities. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you know, a lot of what I think we have to embrace is the idea, and I want to believe the best about what Dame was trying to do, and I think that this is a conversation that has to be had with a community, not with one person leading this, whether me, him, or anybody else. You know, all these ideas have to be laid on the table. But I think that what we need to really consider is the idea and the importance of building things. We need a nation of builders. That's why I love Louis Farrakhan, for example. He's one of my favorite black leaders because he built his stuff. You know, he didn't climb up somebody else's tree. He planted the seed and grew his own tree and climbed to the top of that.
Well, I mean, the baton was passed.
Right, the baton was passed, but at the same time, you know, there is a building mentality within the Nation of Islam that I think we can all learn from. It does not mean that you don't form partnerships. It doesn't mean there's no pride in working for other people per se. I mean, I can't sign off on something like that. But I do think that we have to resurrect the pride of building as opposed to just borrowing, because what we don't understand sometimes is that, you know, and I'm really talking about people of color right now. A lot of this stuff that's out here, it wasn't really built for us. You know, it wasn't. I mean, these corporations were created by other people of other ethnicities 100 years ago, and we get in there and we somehow become disappointed and surprised when we're treated differently because we're black and we don't get the same opportunities. But you can't really move in somebody else's house and then expect to be able to shift around the furniture. It just does not really work. So I think taking that pride in building your own house and being proud of that, right? Because think about this: if you start your own business, you're not going to be balling for a while, if ever. Right, but you have to realize you can't judge the quality of a tree by the size of the seed. You know, every tree is going to start tiny, and you grow that over several generations. Even large companies like the Ford Motor Company, if you look at the history of a company like that, it started off as a tiny seed. It was nothing. Now it's massive, and I think we have to ask ourselves not about what's happening in 2015. But what's going to be happening in 2115 with our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren? What are you passing on?
I think we're planting those seeds now. I think this is the first generation of wealth for black people. I mean, Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964. We were still in segregation 51 years ago.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, man, I don't even know if black people have that much wealth. I mean, average.
You're starting to see the first round of billionaires.
You're seeing some of the black elite doing extremely well. I don't think that the black middle and lower class are doing all that well.
Doesn't it take time, though?
But no, I agree.
It does.
One thing I do agree with is as a kid growing up, I didn't learn about being an entrepreneur or investing. My parents didn't. My pops was a police officer. My mom worked at Guardian Life Insurance. They didn't instill that in me. I instilled that in my kids because I was a little different. But the problem I had with Dame, when I say it's deadly, is, you know, you tell these kids, don't have a boss. You get out there and do it. And see, the problem with Dame is, you know, if you listen to Dame or you listen to past interviews or you listen to Ho's records, you see that they started their business from illegal
activities.
Illegal activity. So you're encouraging kids, well, I don't have a boss. I started like this. No, I went to college. I went to high school, got my degree. I went to college, got my degree. I started working, saved my money, and that's how I built my empire. You know, and you're telling kids, well, you shouldn't do that. And that was my problem because a lot of kids listen.
Well, he is saying sell T-shirts now. You know, to play devil.
But you got to get money to sell T-shirts, though. You got to get money to sell T-shirts. Where do you get money to sell T-shirts?
Yeah,
you know, the drug dealer up front, you got to have capital, some coke or some weed.
I'm with
but you got to have some capital, and the way you get capital is having a job and putting money on the side. And I don't see nothing wrong with having a boss.
Well, let me tell you.
I honestly don't.
I agree with you. I'm not. I think we can agree on that for sure. And one thing I'll supplement with, and it's not really a matter of fighting about it one way or the other, is there's a book called The $100 Startup, which basically explains how you can start a business for under $100. And I know this type of stuff works because I started something with my brother for about $700 a couple years ago. We made $250,000 within 2 years, right? So just from that one business, right? So. And the thing was, if I hadn't been thinking, like, okay, what can I create? What can I generate? I never would have done that, right? Because sometimes we get caught in thinking that a job is something that someone is supposed to give us. A job is also something you can create. It doesn't mean you have to do it. But one thing I do say is I think every parent who cares about their kids should teach their child how to have their own business, even if they go work for somebody else. It doesn't mean that you have to be an entrepreneur. Everybody isn't built for that. Right. But what I would say is either run something or invest in something. So, for example, if I got together with 3 other people and let's say the other 3 didn't want to be entrepreneurs, they didn't have the time, they want to keep their jobs. Well, everybody comes up with, say, $2,000. You pull together, that's 6. I get my 25% of the company, but with equity because I've got free time. So I'm going to run the company because I have the expertise and the free time. Right. You guys are investors. Therefore, we all own something.
But where do you get that money from, though?
Well, if you're working, I mean, if you got a job, you can come up with $2,000 over time. It may take you a year to save it or whatever, but you can come up with that. I mean, we invest in so many other things. I mean, people always say black people can't really create jobs, and I don't think that's true. We create a lot of jobs for other people. When we're spending all this money on these brands and all this other stuff that we do, we're not thinking where that money is going. And I think that is the problem, that we're sort of letting our power escape. Like, money is your power, and you cannot give your power away because at the end of the day, you will be powerless.
I recently read an article about an entrepreneur. He was working at a phone store, right, where a lot of the phones that they don't sell, they don't have anything that they can do with it. Everybody, it might be some old phones that are just laying around. He started his own business that turned into $1 billion business where he would get those phones that they didn't sell, and he was selling them to companies that maybe, at your job, everybody gets a cell phone that the company gives to you, and he was selling those phones that they didn't use at the store. He was like the go-between person, selling them to companies that had to give their employees cell phones, and he turned it into $1 billion business just from working at this cell phone store.
It's all ideas.
It is a lot, and I don't think he really needed much money to start that. He just started mediating those because he saw a need. He saw that there was this overflow of phones, and then he saw that there were companies that needed to give employees phones and didn't want to spend a whole lot of money, so he just merged the 2 ideas together.
Yeah, there you go. Right. I mean, and the thing is that to come up with those ideas, you have to have a certain kind of spirit. You have to have, really creating a job for yourself. It's a little bit like the difference between somebody who thinks that they can only eat if the grocery store has food or if the restaurant serves them versus somebody who says, well, actually, if worse comes to worse, I can grow my own food. I can cook my own food. I'm not going to starve. Right. So you should never starve to death because somebody would not bring food to you. Right. You should know how to create your own food. So I think it's an idea, in terms of creating opportunities, it's about building the entrepreneurial spirit, which starts with taking pride in that. I have so much more respect, when I hear about young brothers that don't have much, who say I own something, I'm building something, than I have for people who say, oh, I work for such and such corporation, I'm making a lot of money. It doesn't mean that both people aren't accomplished. But, I really think we have to build because I really think that this affects us politically and socioeconomically in the sense that people don't respect you when you're always begging for something. Right. Malcolm X talked about that. He said, look, as long as you are begging for jobs from businesses that you do not own, you will always be severely unemployed. And if you look at the unemployment disparity in 1965, 1964, when Malcolm was saying this, to 2015, it hasn't changed that much.
And that's why it's dangerous to tell people there's no pride in having a job. We're already complaining about being unemployed.
I think that you can be proud if you are a proud person, but I think at the end of the day, you have to figure out what you're comfortable with, what you can live with. Let's be real. Racism is stressful for people when they're dealing with. There's an angry black middle class of people who did all the right things. They went to school, they worked hard, they got these corporate jobs, and they are pissed off because they know they're being treated unfairly, but they don't feel like they have any options. So, in many cases, there's studies that show this affects your health. For a man, it kills your testosterone. People get cancer. People get sick off of this stuff. So my thing is, you have to find a way to liberate yourself and restore your manhood because I think it affects our families because I think that black women have a hard time really respecting black men the way they should, because many of us have been so beaten down by the society, we don't know what to do.
We're not in positions of power.
Right. And I'm not saying there's some sort of fundamental flaw in who we are. I'm saying that maybe we need to resurrect some ideas that can restore that power manhood. There was nothing better that happened in my life in terms of dealing with racism than when I figured out how to start my own stuff. You know, I mean, it made me stronger. It made me prouder. It made me more courageous. You know, I got into this crazy when I worked at Syracuse University. I was dealing with all this racism and all this stuff, and I got into this big fight with Bill O'Reilly about something. He had said he made a joke. You remember that? Yeah, he made a joke about lynching Michelle Obama, and I didn't like that. So we got into it or whatever. Well, he worked really hard to get me fired, and I mean I'm talking about really hard. And to the point where multi-million-dollar donors are saying we're not going to give money to your school because you got a racist. You know how O'Reilly does.
Is that why you stepped down?
That played a big part in it. Yes. And the only defining factor in terms of whether or not I could stand by what I said versus apologize for something I did not do was whether or not my financial situation was right.
The FU money.
Yes, when your FU money is right, you have the ability to be a little bolder. I'm not more courageous than other people. I just check my money, check my bank accounts, check my business, and said, okay, if I get fired, I'm going to be okay. Right. You understand? So that's the idea. And the thing is, it wasn't just my situation. I think it's a microcosm of what so many of us experience every day. Just make sure you've got options for yourself. If you got options, I think you're going to be all right.
I want to ask you about what you said. I don't want, if I'm misquoting you, let me know. You said that a man is not a man if he has a job that boss, you're not the man of your house, the boss is the man of your house.
You know what? I will say this. It is fundamentally flawed for you to depend on the descendants of your historical oppressors to get the things that you need in order to survive.
But the reason I ask you that, because you, like for somebody like you went to school, you busted your ass to get your degrees, to put yourself in that position to make that money. So it's not like they're giving you something. You earned that position. Yeah,
I earned it, but understand, I mean, for example, when I got my first job as a professor, I was the first black person they'd ever hired in the 100-year history of that department. But I was not the first smart black person to apply for that job, right? We've had brilliant black people since black people came into existence, but I was the first one to get that opportunity. So understand it. I mean, if someone doesn't force certain people to open the door, they just won't. They'll just in fact, I'll give you a good example. When I graduated from college, I was the #1 student in my whole senior class. I won awards for it and everything. Got 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years. I mean, I busted my butt in school. I wanted to work on Wall Street, and it's funny because I'm staying on Wall Street this week, and it made me think about this. I sent out 200 resumes to 200 Wall Street firms and got 200 rejection letters.
Wow.
Yes, it hurt me to the core, right? But
all you need is one yes, though.
Was it? Yes, absolutely. One yes would have made a big difference in my life. But at the same time, sometimes not getting what you want, it's a lot like a relationship where you ever been in love with somebody and they didn't want you, and then maybe a year later you realize you're happy that they didn't want you because you found somebody better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the same way with that. Like I can't explain when you own your own stuff, when you get a chance to feel that power of being a boss, it goes far deeper than the money. If you're doing it just for the money, I think you're missing like 90% of the equation. I mean, I love money. I mean, I studied capitalism and finance. I know all about that. But it's just, I breathe easier every day. I get up. I don't just crawl out of bed. I bounce out of bed. Right. It's so I think everybody should get a chance to feel this. And I think we definitely have to start with our kids.
Right.
And there's no excuse to say, well, I don't understand entrepreneurship. I can't teach this to my kids. The best university in the history of the world is called Google.com. And YouTube.com. You can literally go to YouTube University and learn everything you want to know. We actually have a website called Financial Juneteenth as well that people can go to, but that's one of a billion that's out here.
I would recommend that over just going to random YouTube videos. Because there's some poison out there, too.
Okay, there you go. All right, there you go. Okay, well, I got the endorsement for Charlamagne. Thank you, brother. But but in all seriousness, the information is out there, and sometimes it's something small. It might be something like just saying to your kids, one day make sure you own your own business. If you say that a few times a year, your child will hold on to that. I know a guy who's a 27-year-old millionaire. And that's what he said. He said, my dad did not, he didn't have his own business, but he just always said to me, you should have your own business. He didn't explain how to do it. You know, he just said, this is what you should do. So that's what I did. And now he's doing really well. You know, and my dad was a cop, like your dad. And so we understood the value of hard work. You know, I don't know about your dad, but my dad was a very tough guy. He was a Vietnam vet. And he did. And I think the reason that I don't have a big problem with what Dame Dash said is because my dad has a little bit of that in him. Like my dad, you know, he would straight up punk me, you know, when I got to feeling sorry for myself or like, oh, the world won't do this for me, do that for me. And if you sort of sift through that energy that you're receiving that might bother you or assault your masculinity, you realize, okay, maybe he has a point, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares that much about you in this world.
Yeah, he's absolutely right about empowerment. He's absolutely right about ownership.
Hold on, but you know what? It was my dad that actually made me become an entrepreneur because, like you said, my dad was a police officer, so he was very hard on me. And him being so hard on me, I didn't want to work for anybody. I would never wanted to have a boss like that. I swear to God. So I started doing mixtapes and started on my own and selling because I didn't want a boss. And for me, like I told Dame, radio is my passion. I love it. Like, you know how people get up and you say you get that bounce in the morning? Yes. I'm not tired. I enjoy coming to work. There's not a day when I'm like, damn it, I got to come to work. When I miss work too many days, I start fidgeting. Like, I'm like, I got to get to work. I start calling Charlamagne, like, yo, what you doing?
Yes.
I calling you, like, what you doing? Where you at? You know, because I love this job. But to back what you said, there's a lot of people that don't need to be entrepreneurs, that don't have that in their heart. So that people who need to invest, what can they invest in? Because that's something that people just don't know. They're scared of the stock market, so they don't know what they can invest in. They hear about the stock market going up and down. They feel like real estate is too much money to put 10% down or 5% down on a home. So what would you advise for that person that doesn't want to be an entrepreneur or doesn't have the time or has kids that just wants to invest their money? What would you tell them to put their money in something that can make money, not just a bank where they're going to make 2% or, you know, out of 100 years, something that they could possibly make some money?
Well, when I first got started investing, I put my money in mutual funds, and it's not complex. I mean, if you just go to your bank and say, you know, can you show me some mutual funds I can invest in, they'll show you what to do. They even have scenarios where you can set up a drip where you take a little bit of your paycheck. Yeah. It could be $10, $50, whatever, and it goes in this account over time. And I can tell you this,
because of the taxes, it's right.
There you go. A lot of it, if you do like a 401k, like a tax deferred type thing, or 403b, you know, that can be the start of kind of thinking about investing. And that's what I did. I mean, you know, I had money going into my retirement account, and believe it or not, actually, when I did finally leave my job and start my own business, my retirement account, which had built up over the years, it kind of played like it played the role of a small bank for me. Right. Because sometimes you can't get the capital you want. Sometimes a bank won't lend it to you, and you just don't have it. So sometimes I'd borrow against myself or whatever. And what I found too, though, was that there are so many opportunities when it comes to investing in the black community. So many opportunities that are just overlooked. And literally, I was able to double and triple my money pretty quickly. You know, so just
off the bank stuff.
Just off of
diversifying your portfolio.
Yeah, well, now the mutual fund part, that is diversification. Like a mutual fund is not something where you're picking a stock or trying to pick the right stock at the right time. Your money's invested in thousands of stocks, and really, I just put my money in, and I just made sure I had a certain like balance as far as risk. You know, not too much risk, not too little, and then I just left it alone.
But that's you know, that's longevity. Most, especially African Americans, they want that money now. Like, they don't want to wait 20 years down the line to see that money flip.
Well, they better go sell that crack.
Don't sell crack.
Something with more risk. Like, what do you advise? Because, you know, I have my money in mutual funds and bonds, but you look at that money, like, my kids will see that. You know what I mean? But what can they invest in now that says, you know what? Here, try this, or look at this, or maybe this might be for you where I can make a quicker flip?
Well, two things. One, there are billionaires being created every day on the internet. I mean, I'm telling you, these Silicon Valley cats and whatnot, I mean, they've got it figured out. You know, they create value very, very quickly with very little capital investment sometimes.
Those apps, all those stuff, all that social media apps with Snapchat, Twitter.
Oh my goodness, those apps are killing.
Yep. And then, you know, on top of that, you know, I would say partner with someone that identifies a need and help fill it. It might be something as simple as my friend bakes cookies really good, and when she goes to work and brings her cookies, everybody loves them.
What's up with you bald head guys and cookies?
My son sells cookies.
Everybody sells cookies.
Ain't no wrong with cookies, man.
Dame Dash's son sells cookies too.
Oh, really? Oh, does he? Yeah, I mean, maybe there's money in cookies. I don't know. I don't know. I like cookies.
That's what Dame said when he was like, my son sells cookies.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, so a lot of times, you know, I can tell you I've made most of my money like that. Just identifying a little need and you know, if I have a friend that wants to do something and they need $500 to get started, I invest, I own half the company or whatever, and then, you know, you make money that way. Yeah, most of my money has been built from small businesses I created, online and offline, as opposed to the long-term stuff with the stock market. So I think people should do both, a little bit of both.
Now, we're being realistically, right? So now you open up a business. Who do you hire to run your business? Who do you hire as your employees?
Well, I don't.
Do you hire African Americans or do you hire people that best suit the job?
I think you do both. I'm a big fan of hiring black people, because people tend to hire people like them.
Yes. That's why a lot of times people think it's a race issue with the employee discrimination, but actually it's just like, no, I'm just hiring people who I relate to.
Right.
That relate to me.
Yeah, and sometimes black people, we're the only ones who kind of fall for that lie that we shouldn't love our people that are like us and support our own community. If you go to like Jewish communities and Arab communities, right. I mean, they are hooking up their family members first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Now, at the same time, you don't want to hire relatives who are going to screw up your company or ruin your relationship by doing a bad job. So there are some relatives I would never hire in a million years. But I'm always, when I have an opportunity, I look to the people around me first. I take care of people in my circle, in my family, blood family or not, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I can't find somebody in my family, then I might go outside of that. There's sites like Odesk and Elance where you can find contractors at a good price, stuff like that if you don't have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big fan of supporting your own. I mean, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, that's really essential to survival.
A lot of people are scared of our own. I think a lot of African Americans are scared to hire our own and are fearful of our own. It's one of those things that's like you're scared of yourself, and I see that a lot.
I think sometimes the biggest supporters of white supremacy are black people, actually. Mm-hmm. We truly believe that we are a flawed brand of society. Some of us, we really we say things about ourselves that are disparaging. Many of us, because we don't always have a culture to connect to. Remember, a lot of black history doesn't even start for many of us before slavery. We have no clue what happened to us before we arrived on slave ships. Right. So for many of us, we might latch our minds on to attaining acceptance within, say, white institutions as a sign of progress, right? We'll say something like, okay, well, so-and-so was the first black man to get into Harvard, and I'm very proud of that, which, fine, okay, Harvard's a good school.
You should be proud of Harvard.
Right. But here's the thing, though, right? You don't really hear white folks saying, well, this is the first white man to get into Morehouse. Yeah. They don't care. Right. They don't consider assimilation or acceptance by us to be a step up. Yeah. But we consider assimilation and acceptance by them to be a step up, and I just don't think that that's a healtany way to think.
I look at things like that. I'm like, it's not the black person that's making progress. Harvard is making progress because they're finally accepting us.
Exactly. And I mean, we are such a strong and capable people. I mean, intellectually, physically, and otherwise. Mm-hmm. Even if you look at sports, like there really is no sort of white version of Shaquille O'Neal, no white version of Kobe Bryant. I think that there is something about the fact that we survived hundreds of years of the most brutal torture ever dropped on any group of human beings on the planet. And I think that's what makes people fear us. And so if you fear something, if you are a trainer of a big elephant and you know that elephant could crush you in a second, what do? You have to control the elephant's mind from the very beginning and make him think you're the boss. And I think that's kind of what happens to us. I think that we're trained to hate ourselves so much. We will kill each other. We will dog each other out. We won't support each other. And I think that's a problem.
We will dis-empire.
Well, you know what?
Empire.
I don't think. I think that Lee Daniels, to some extent, might be dissing all of us. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on people that enjoy the show. I'm not attacking people who work on the show. But here's the thing: black men are the most incarcerated group of people on the planet. Mm-hmm. I mean, we incarcerate more black men in America than South Africa did during the height of apartheid. Mm-hmm. And if apartheid was considered the most racist regime in history, and we incarcerate more black men than they did, what does that say about America, right? So, given that is true, many of those incarcerations occur. Many of those men are innocent, and women as well. It occurs.
Everybody in jail is innocent, though.
Well, not everybody.
Well, I mean, that's what they say. That's what everybody says.
They're not. They don't say it, but there are so many cases.
Everybody says they are.
Everybody in jail says they're innocent.
But every week on Your Black World, we're writing about some brother that went to prison in 1982 for something he didn't do, did 30 years, and then they gave him $500,000 or something. Like that's going to make it better. One brother, in fact, got $9 million because he was sent to prison for a rape he did not commit. But he was raped many times in prison. Caught HIV in the process.
Yeah, I just saw that story. That was awful.
Yes, and on top of that, the prosecutors a year after they incarcerated him, found the guy who committed the crime, locked him up, but didn't release him, and kept him in prison for 30 years, and he had a newborn daughter. This is the kind of atrocity, the kind of Holocaust, really, that we're dealing with. So in light of that, with that as the backdrop of all of this, we have to understand, in many cases, when that brother goes before that all-white jury, a lot of times a prosecutor to get a conviction, all he's got to do is paint some picture of this black man being a thug. And that's why George Zimmerman was released, because they showed pictures of Trayvon smoking weed, like, oh, he was a thug. But we know George Zimmerman was the real thug, right? Jordan Davis, when he got murdered for playing his music too loud, they painted him as a thug in the courtroom. There are a lot of
that guy got sentenced to a lot of time.
He got his time.
Absolutely.
Thank God. But then you got Brian Banks, the football player who was falsely accused of rape, who lost his whole career because of that accusation. His attorney told him, he said, Brian, you are a big black man. If you go in front of that all-white jury, they are going to send you to prison. You're not going to get justice because you're a big black man. That's why he took the plea. A lot of brothers go to prison for taking the plea. We know this, right? So the question that I ask myself
is, with Empire?
Right. Let me. I'm going to get the Empire. The question I ask myself is, if you got this all-white jury, many of whom don't even have any black friends, don't know a whole lot of black people, why is it so easy to convince them that this black man is a scary thug?
Perception.
Right, perception, which comes from many times the media.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, it doesn't mean that I hate Empire. I saw it. It's a good show. But I said, I have to be a conscientious objector to the consistent the portrayal of black men as criminal, thug, gangster type people, because that's not who we are.
I agree with you, but this is my thing too. Art reflects life, right? And I feel like guys like Lee Daniels, they're only showing us one POV of African Americans. They're not showing the guys like you. They're not showing, we need more stuff like Selma showing guys like Martin Luther King Jr. We don't need any more slave movies.
No.
We could do it without the thug experience. We've heard that numerous amount of times in music and movies. So I don't think it's necessarily Lee Daniels' fault. He's just showing us one POV of African Americans.
Yeah, and in my opinion, when I look at the trail of Lee's work, he's showing kind of a very consistent POV that kind of shows this kind of the basement of black life, just the worst, most disgusting things that happen in the black community. When I looked at Precious, I mean, I was depressed when I walked out.
African American horror movie,
right? It was like, what the hell is this, man? Like, are you serious? Like this poor girl was getting crapped on the whole movie.
I hated it.
And then here's the thing:
and when I found out I thought it was real. But then when I found out it wasn't real, I was like, damn, you could have a happy ending at least.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of Quentin Tarantino. How his movies are so sick that you're just like, man, like, what did you go through as a child? So I literally studied Lee's background. Like, I read his Wikipedia page in detail and tried to just understand what he went through. And if you look at Lee's background, he's experienced some horrible shit.
Right.
Excuse my French. I didn't mean
You good.
My bad. Okay. He's gone through some terrible things. And, the trauma, the abuse, being, denied love by his family. He talks about his sister as an obese crack addict. And I think that when you go through that kind of trauma as a black person, which a lot of us do, you can somehow associate your blackness with just the very worst things that can happen, in a society. So what do you do then? Then you somehow might be convinced that maybe on the other side of town where the white folks live, that's the paradise. That's where you want to be. That's where life gets good. And I think that that's unfortunate, because I think there are a lot of healthy experiences that occur in the black community, and I don't see those portrayed as regularly in media.
I mean, Blackish, you got Blackish now.
Yes, I love Blackish.
Blackish.
But this is the problem, though. You look at Empire, right, or Love and Hip Hop, and you say, you know what? This is not positive for my people, but it's gonna make me a lot of money, right? Then this is the problem. You say, well, if I don't make it, somebody else gonna make it. So why don't I make it and make the money?
Why we can't just look at it as entertainment? Like how you said about white people, and you said white people.
So because if I make the money, I could put the money into positive things and maybe help the youth. Maybe he's doing it, maybe he's not. But I look at some things like that where, you look at your Love and Hip Hop and it's an effed up show, and you look at Empire and it's so many stereotypes. It pisses me off sometimes. Like they're fighting and tell the cops F. Like it's so stereotypical that when I walk out my house, I feel like my neighbors are looking at me like, Listen, you know what I mean?
Envy is right, but how you said about white people, they don't look at white people getting into Morehouse as an accomplishment. Do you think they look at their own entertainment and say Quentin Tarantino's bad for white people? The stuff he makes, or the music that.
Well, people were mad about The Sopranos and Mob Wives.
Italian people.
But do white people get upset and like how we do? And say that's affecting our people.
Well, I think that whites have the luxury. Again, this does come back to white privilege and white supremacy to some extent. I mean, because they own the media outlets, they get such a diverse array of portrayals. But I have a lot of friends in Hollywood, I'm sure you do too, who will say, I get tired of going into auditions and having them tell me to be the black woman with the attitude, swing my, talk loud, etc. Or I get tired of being asked to be the black man who portrays a thug. I remember I was very proud of Idris Elba because he took a stand and was saying, like, there's certain roles I just will not play, even for Tyler Perry, and he was in a Tyler Perry movie. And so the thing about media to me is that media is just one of the most powerful forms of propaganda known to man.
Malcolm X said it.
Right. It is.
Control the media, you control the mind.
Yes. I mean, Hitler used media to justify the persecution and the abuse and the slaughter of the Jews. All you got to do is you paint them as menaces to society, as these fundamentally dysfunctional people, these almost like roaches and maggots that you have to exterminate, and then people will sign off on allowing you to exterminate them. Well, it's hard to argue that that's not what's been consistently happening with black people. I mean, even when we were being lynched on a regular basis, they didn't just lynch black people just for being black. They would always have an excuse. It would always be, well, he touched that white woman, or he stole some cookies, or we back to cookies. Cookies. Right. I guess I'm going to eat some cookies after.
We got some cookies in here.
I know, right? I need some cookies. But, so at the end of the day, I think that, a lot of what we're seeing in media, we have to not make sure we don't fall for this idea that it's just entertainment. I mean, that's how propaganda works, is you convince people that it's just entertainment. And nothing is just entertainment. But most of the time there's an agenda. Even Lee and his producers said that, our goal is to blow the lid off homophobia in the black community. They understand that entertainment does have an impact on the way people think.
No, that's true. I actually said, when I heard him say that statement, I said, I think, Lee, you care more about homophobia than we do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I ain't tripping off it like that.
See, but the problem is especially in our community, we idolize that. And like Charlamagne says all the time, we like to go to the schools and talk to the kids. But, growing up in Queens, I see my dad work mad overtime to make sure my Christmas was great and spent a lot of money to put me in Catholic school. But then I would see all the drug dealers driving up the block working an hour or two, and they had the expensive cars, the nice jewelry, the women. And I think for our community, we look at that as making it. We don't look at the family as, I had my mother and father in the household, and I had my father there on Christmas, and my father never went to jail. We don't look at that. So when you see some of these movies, and we talk about some of these movies, Menace to Society, and what's the other movie that you just said the other day that you
Boys
love?
in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood.
Juice.
And what's this nice movie?
New Jack
City.
So those movies we love. We love watching it, and we enjoy watching those type of movies.
I never gave a damn about Tony Montana.
But
I wasn't
name
Nino
some
Brown
positive movies that we
like
enjoy
me.
watching. Besides Coming to America, I can't really think of a positive
but
movie
it was
that I
TV
really
though. Bill Cosby. A Different
but
World.
We don't have none of that now.
Martin was positive to me because Martin had a job. Martin did radio.
Right. And he loved the black woman too. I mean, that's important as well. Absolutely.
Besides that, on TV, what do we have now?
I'm gonna be honest
you
with
look at Scandal, it seems like the black woman's the side chick.
It's interesting because they just did an article that I was talking about in Deadline, right? And they were saying that right now the pendulum might have swung a bit too far in the opposite direction. There's too few roles. Before there were too few roles for actors of color in Hollywood, but now, according to this article, basically 50% of the roles in a pilot have to be ethnic, and the mandate goes all the way down to guest parts. And basically what they're saying now is it's just swung too far in the other direction.
I mean, I think there could be progress. I mean, I think that people being more sensitive to just here's the thing. The reason I like Blackish is not because I believe that everything is cotton candy and cupcakes. It's because Blackish allows black people to be human. We're very diverse, heterogeneous people. Some of us are nerdy, some of us are scandalous, whatever. And I just like to see stuff that where your being black is not the first thing that people understand about your character, right? In fact, when I went to South Africa this week or a couple weeks ago, I love the fact that people didn't care that I was black because everybody was black.
Right.
At that point, people want to know more about who you are as a person. But sometimes in America, the first thing people know is I'm a black guy, and it comes with all this baggage and all these expectations and stereotypes. And I think that's a heavy burden for all of us to carry.
I mean, that's like that in the media too, because I'm the type of person, if I see a situation happen between a police officer and a young black male, I don't think this is a white police officer, black male first. The first thing I think is what happened. I want to know the scenario first. You know what I'm saying? Before I just jump to, he was white, he was black, it was racism.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we would call critical thinking, which we have to do. I mean, and it's really important because we got so many cases that are being revealed now of black people being shot by the police. And I think the biggest mistake we can make is assuming that every white cop just wakes up with a bloodthirst and wants to kill black people.
Yeah, who wants that? I don't want that kind of fear. I find myself paranoid and scared, like, whoa.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do know that racial profiling does.
Absolutely. It's very, very real. And I would say Envy could say, I mean, with your dad, I assume you knew some cops that worked with your dad on the force. I know from my experience, I saw the good and the bad.
Right.
I mean, I've seen cops that just were good people that wanted to help. And think about it. I mean, a good cop, has a really tough job because you have to care about problems that are not yours.
Right.
A lot of times you're helping people get a cat out of a tree or just help somebody find directions or, just little things that a lot of us don't really want to do. And then you're putting yourself in harm's way. Right. But then you've got those cops who do abuse their authority. There are many reasons to be afraid of cops. We live in a society where people assume that cops are innocent and that if you are the quote unquote criminal, that somehow the cops should get the benefit of the doubt about what happened. Right.
And what also makes it difficult is when you had bad experiences with cops, that makes you not trust cops, period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think good cops should be taking the lead in terms of helping weed out bad cops.
Absolutely.
Because it hurts all of them. Because we need good cops in the world, in our community. I don't think anybody want to live in a world without police officers. That's a fact.
Because I don't see a black cop and be like, he's good, and see a white cop and be like, he's bad. I just see cops, period, and be like, I'm staying away from all of them.
I'm away from that.
Yeah. I mean, that blue wall of silence is real. Cops are threatened in many, many ways, sometimes threatened even with death. For speaking up, and I think it's the system that really is the culprit there. So because you're just as likely to be abused by a black cop as by a white cop in many cases. So that's what we kind of have to deal with, and not get so caught up in the black and white, and not caught up in this idea that every cop who shoots a black man somehow is a bad, evil person. I don't think cops just get up wanting to kill people every day. That's just my theory.
But it's also media though too, because I look at my son, and we live in a nice area in Jersey, so what he sees is what's on TV. So when you look on Channel 12 or Channel 1 or the news channel, all you see is young African American on TV doing bad. They never show positivity. Never show positive. They'll say 8 people shot in Newark. This is what the suspect looks like. 8 people shot in Patterson. 2 people shot in the Bronx. 2 people shot in Brooklyn. So my son starts to see African Americans as bad.
But you got to show them different.
Right.
See, I've never been the type to put that much cachet into the media or entertainment. My mother and father kept the book in my face.
But my son, as a dad, there's a lot of people out there that don't have parents raising them, and they are raised from media and raised from music. There's a lot of kids out there like that. That makes it difficult.
That's what it's dangerous.
And it's very dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, what we still, I think, have not quite figured out is that the mass incarceration epidemic that started in the 70s has obliterated the black family. I mean, this whole 72% of black children being born without a father in the house, that didn't really start until so many fathers were being sent to prison and marginalized. I'll give you one example. There's a guy I know in Chicago, Mario Lloyd, sold some cocaine, never killed anybody. At least he wasn't convicted for anything like that.
He did kill somebody if he sold cocaine.
There you go. Well,
there was a family. It was maybe a woman that overdosed.
There you go.
Somebody could have killed somebody for that coke. We got to stop saying that. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. He sold cocaine. People were hurt by this, right? Absolutely. But here's the interesting thing: when the feds took him away, they locked him. They gave him 15 life sentences for nonviolent first-time offense. They locked up his mother, they locked up his sister, and they locked up his brother. So the question is,
conspiracy.
There you go. Yeah. So when you lock up an entire family, what happens to those kids?
Right.
I mean, 20 years later, Mario's son gets murdered in the same neighborhood that his father used to deal drugs in. You need those role models there. You can't think a community is going to prosper when you're killing off all the men.
But none of this would have happened if he would have never sold coke. And I mean, I used to sell dope, but it's just that simple.
But right, I agree. Breaking the law is wrong. We all agree on that. But the punishment has to fit the crime. I mean, 15 life sentences. I don't understand that. Another brother, Daryl Pageant, got 40 years for possessing a gram of crack. I mean, come on now. And if you really want to see, if you really want to see people breaking the law, if you really want to see people possessing drugs, go to a college campus on the weekend. But I guarantee you, they will never raid a college campus the way they'll go up in the hood and lock everybody up.
And not only that, you said people shouldn't sell drugs, and I know this is going to be a tough statement, but I understand it at times. Like you said, you just named a young man that got to take care of his grandmother, his mother, and his brother. He's the man of the house.
Get a job.
And you say get a job, but McDonald's making $9 an hour is not going to pay that.
Part of what makes that hard is the community the environment that you grow up into. If everybody around you is doing something and that's how you were raised and that's what everybody's doing, sometimes it's hard because that's the environment.
I'll tell you why I don't understand it. I don't understand it because I've seen the outcome. The outcome is jail or death.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. So that's why I don't understand it. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
But his head is looking at...
I know people who have said, listen, I grew up in a terrible neighborhood. That's what everybody was doing. That's what all my role models were doing, that everybody around me that just seemed normal. And so that's what makes it, I think, difficult sometimes for people. And then you give him 15 consecutive life sentences, and he never has a chance to do something else or experience something else or get a second chance.
But there's always Jamal that didn't get the life sentences that made the money.
It's
that
always
got out.
Charlemagne.
There's the Charlemagne that
But
didn't get
I don't
it,
think people getting them type of opportunities no more.
But some
Change their
people
life.
are. You know?
No, and here's another interesting thing. I mean, you know, when you talk about that scenario of working at McDonald's, I live on the south side of Chicago, and a lot of those kids just cannot find jobs anywhere. In fact, there are some neighborhoods where a black youth or black man especially has an easier time getting a gun than he has of getting an education or getting a decent job. You know, so I think that is part of the issue as well. And then I think a fundamental question to really ask is, we know teenagers are just pretty stupid a lot of times. You know, not right. Dumb in terms of, you know, but a lot of us did dumb stuff when we were teenagers, antisocial stuff, right? So the question to me is, you know, what's the cost of making a mistake? Right? You know, why is it that for some people in our society, like you look at somebody like a George Bush, that's what I was talking about. I actually wrote a book called What If George Bush Were a Black Man? Because I literally
Great
said,
read, by the way.
I said, thank you, brother, I appreciate that. I said, so, you know, what would have happened if George Bush were a poor black kid in Cabrini Green projects in Chicago and made the same mistakes he made?
He'd still be there.
Right, exactly. He would still be there. He'd be dead or he'd be in prison. Yeah. He certainly would never have had a chance to become president and make up for his mistakes. Right. So I think that for some of us,
actually, to become president and make more mistakes. But go ahead.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah. I mean, he's a war criminal. I mean, we know that, right? Yeah. And so, you know, to me, I think that we have to really question why we have a society where, for certain people, one mistake at the age of 17 or 18 can destroy you for life.
I agree with that.
You know, my older brother figure. He was really my uncle, but he was like my older brother. You know, I remember when he went to prison at 17, and I don't know what happened when he was in prison, but I know bad things can occur. And all I know is that when he came out, he just wasn't right mentally. Right. You know, he only did 2 years, but prison is such a nightmare. I mean, people are being tortured in prison. Think about, getting raped, and we make jokes about that. That's not funny. Rape is not funny. It's not. Right. And, you know, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Rape is a little funny sometimes.
No, it's not. It's never funny.
No,
it's not.
It does make you chop.
It definitely doesn't.
No.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, right. It's a nightmare. It's torture. It's a human rights abuse.
Yes.
And so we put people through that, and then we think, oh, somehow you're going to come out and be rehabilitated. We know that's not going to happen.
No,
and you're marginalized for life. You can't get a job. I mean, really, the truth here is that we live in a country now where incarceration has become profitable. So I think now we have a country where people don't really want you to get away from the
stock market.
There you go.
On the stock market.
The private prisons, exactly.
You need to come up here more often, man.
I'd be glad to, bro.
Let's play one more Dame Dash clip. Play the saving money clip because, you know, Dr. Boyce Watkins is a jack of all trades, but he's really good at finance.
And 9 to 5s aren't good because you hustling for a weekend.
But then you act like you never worked your way up to a position. You didn't just jump out as a tycoon.
I never had a job.
But you didn't jump out as the tycoon that got the oil and everything.
Yes, I did. I went and grabbed it. I flipped.
From the womb?
Yes, from the womb. I was Dame Dash the day I was born.
But you didn't have everything that you have now from the womb, Dame.
The way I got it was not by a job. I got it by putting up my own money. Like, one day I have a lot of money, and then the next day I don't. You know why? Because I put it all in the street. You keep saying, yo, you just started, you did. No, dog, I've always flipped. I don't put up money. Saving money's for suckers to me. I have so much confidence in me that I flip. And 20 years later, I'm still a boss, and you still got a job.
I would love to close on this. What do you think of that?
I think that the goal of being a boss is a good objective to have. I don't think everybody has to be Dame Dash. You know, there are many people who are bosses who have philosophies that might differ from Dame. I like the way he awakened the sleeping dragon with just bold commentary. I mean, Dame Dash is Dame Dash. He's always going to be that person. You know, but there's no Jay-Z without Dame Dash. We know that type of thing. And we have to give him credit for that.
Absolutely.
Right. His desire to take risk sometimes has led to tremendous fortune and sometimes some misfortune. Right. But remember, you know, you can't diss Dame's commentary per se just because he's not always doing as well as he might have hoped. Because remember, Donald Trump declared bankruptcy 4 times. Right. So that
saving money for suckers.
Right. Now, the idea of saving money being for suckers, no. I mean, come on. That you can't say that. But I would say that simply saving money doesn't make sense. I think
saving, having it just sit there.
Right, saving and investing is really the best approach, right? So the idea at the end of the day is find ways to keep your money in your pocket and put it into things that are going to empower you. Eventually, your money has to start working for you, and everybody can do it. Get out of the what I would call the slave mentality. The slave mentality to me is when you will go work 10, 12 hours a day because somebody told you to come to work, and they're going to give you a minimum wage paycheck. But when it comes to working half of that time to achieve goals for yourself, whether they be educationally or entrepreneurially or whatever, you can't put in the time. You ain't got time. You want to go get turned up. You want to watch Basketball Wives or whatever. And that doesn't make sense to me. Why would you spend more time building somebody else's dream and no time building your own?
Absolutely.
That makes no sense to me.
I always tell interns be like, well, how do I have time to go to school and have a job and do an internship? It's 168 hours in a week.
Boom.
You invest time in what you want to invest time in.
That's right.
Period.
There you go.
There you have it. Dr. Boyce Watkins, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, you got to come more often, man.
Yeah,
Thank you, brother.
Back. Yeah,
I appreciate the
absolutely,
invitation.
positively.
I
Great
respect all
Anytime
you
you're
guys.
in New York. Because, I mean, financial literacy is something that I think more of us need, especially after what I've heard the past couple of weeks. I've heard some of the dumbest financial tips from people. I'm like, y'all have no clue what y'all talking about.
Well, I respect you guys, and Charlamagne, I've always respected you. Back when we did stuff with you on Wendy's show, man, you always, Charlamagne always respected me even when nobody else did, and that's why I love this brother. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
All righty. It's the Breakfast Club, Dr. Boyce Watkins.